Well, hello, challengees. This is Monday, November 27th, and welcome to the Always Better Challenge Show, the show devoted to helping you make a happier and better tomorrow, be a better person tomorrow. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's Monday, and let's get the week started off right. The topic of today's show is called You Rest and You Rust, and we're going to talk about the importance of exercise to making tomorrow a better day for us. We're going to talk about tips, tools, and techniques. We're going to talk about the importance, why exercise is important, and some of the ways that we can incorporate that into our daily lives. So as always, I'm going to start with my quote, and today's quote is, "One of the greatest moments in life is realizing that 2 weeks ago, your body couldn't do what it just did." And that quote goes to Mick Kremling. And that definitely is one of the great things about a fitness routine or a workout routine, is that when your body improves and when you're able to, see that measurably. And the weight doesn't lie, as the saying goes. And again, today's episode is brought to you by coffee. So thank you for that. So the importance of exercise. The human body is designed to move. It always has been and it always will be. Now, back in the day, we didn't have a choice, right? We, hunter-gatherer and all that stuff. We had to go out and look for food and drag it back to the cave and all that good stuff. And, even in more recent times when we were moving towards an industrialized society, but we still didn't have all the conveniences that we have nowadays that help us to live lives of more leisure. Things as simple as cars and automobiles, not to mention all of the labor-saving appliances that we now have. So yeah, we used to be forced to move. Now, unfortunately, we're not. So we have to choose to move. And remembering that that's what our body is intended to do, and that if our body is not being used, I love that quote at the beginning. It really does say it all. You rest, you rust. Another way that I'm sure you've heard it said before is, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And obviously losing it is the last thing that we want to have happen in regards to our bodies. It's the only body we got. It's the only home we have here, while we're on this earth. So we got to take care of it. There are in my opinion, and I've did some research before I did the show and got some agreement on this, that there are in my opinion, three pillars that we need to look at as far as exercise. The first is the one that I think seems to get most of the attention, and that is cardiovascular fitness. Obviously, that's very important, and that's going to be addressed by mostly our aerobic exercises such as running, cycling. We can put swimming in that category, rowing, even things like tennis. Basically anything that's going to get your heart really beating and get you breathing heavy. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about cardiovascular fitness. That one, like I say, I feel like that seems to get most of the attention nowadays. Somebody says, "Well, I'm going to get in shape," and they start thinking about, "Well, I'm going to go running." That, as I say, is an important component of fitness, but it is only one of the components. The second component that also gets, good enough attention, I think, is strength training, some sort of resistance training, weightlifting, whatever phrase you want to use there. I think most folks, understand that's a part of fitness. Sometimes I think it doesn't get the attention it should, especially among women for reasons that I suppose are obvious that we'll talk about a little bit, as far as women being afraid that they're going to get bulky or look like men. Nothing could be further from the truth. You'd really, what am I trying to say? It takes a lot of work to look like, if you're thinking about some of the female, professional or semi-professional bodybuilders, that's a lifestyle commitment, and it takes a lot to get to that point. What I'm trying to say is that just a normal weight training or resistance training or strength training routine, you don't have to worry about looking like that. It's you're not going to look like that unless you really, 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 really try to look like that. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, to put it simply. The third pillar of exercise, I'm sorry, this is driving me crazy. I was trying to ignore it, seeing either way, so I'm being a little OCD about my background. I apologize. The third pillar that doesn't get as much attention, I don't think, as it should, especially when we're younger. The older we get, I think the more we understand the importance of it, is flexibility. I definitely plead guilty to that myself. I did not give flexibility the importance that I should, and then realized as I got older that I was losing flexibility, and that got my attention, and I definitely work more on my flexibility now and want to continue to do that. I want my body to move all the ways it's designed to move. And so when you start losing flexibility and those movements become difficult or even impossible to, that's definitely something we want to fight against as much as we can. We want to keep working on that and keep our bodies supple and limber and flexible. So those are the three pillars, in my opinion: cardiovascular fitness, strength or weight training, and flexibility. We want to hit all three of those in balance. We don't want to focus too much on one, and that's one of the points I'm going to make on this show. This is my opinion. This might, raise, I might get some pushback on this from some folks. I know plenty of folks out there that specialize in one or the other. Maybe just because they like it, maybe because they're particularly good at it and want to be better at it. And I'm not here to say that there's anything wrong with that. If you want to be an elite runner, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. If you want to be an elite weightlifter or power lifter or bodybuilder, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I think for most of us, if our real goal is not so much, excellence in any particular athletic endeavor, but just all around health and, all around having the good life and the good body that we want to have, I think it behooves us to try to balance out all three pillars or corners of the triangle, however you want to look at that. So that point being made. So the importance of exercise, well, it benefits every single part of your body and benefits some things beyond your body, in my opinion. I mean, being fit, it helps your heart, helps your bones, helps your muscles, all of it, helps your mind, in my opinion. It helps with weight management. I think everyone knows that and would agree with that. And again, getting back to, and especially for the women watching, strength training is particularly valuable when it comes to weight management. And I think people get confused on that sometimes, maybe, or don't give that the attention that they should. Cardiovascular exercise, you go out and run, fast or hard, you're going to burn a lot of calories, and that's part of weight management. But strength training helps you build muscle. Muscle is more metabolically active tissue than fat. And meaning that the more muscle you have, people talk about trying to speed up their metabolism. Well, the way to speed up your metabolism is to build muscle. The more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is going to be. That muscle, a way to look at it is, once you've got that muscle, it needs calories to maintain itself. So that is very helpful in weight management, is working out for men and for women. But I bring that up especially for women who might be hesitant sometimes to really get into strength training otherwise. What other benefits does exercise have? It reduces your risk of disease, lots of disease. In particular, a couple of the big ones that folks worry about, diabetes and high blood pressure. Those two are particularly amenable to improvement with exercise. One of the things that definitely, one of my favorite benefits, I guess I can say, of exercise is what it does for your mind, or maybe more specifically for your mood. There have been several studies that have shown that exercise, in a lot of cases, can be just as effective in treating depression as antidepressants. I think that says a lot. And I definitely have seen that for myself. It definitely improves my overall mood, my overall sense of well-being when I'm exercising regularly. The times when I've fallen off the wagon and not been exercising regularly, I've definitely seen that go the other way, unfortunately. And like particularly in the winter, you've probably heard of seasonal affective disorder, which is folks talk about getting a little, I guess, mild depression, or maybe sometimes even not so mild during the winter months. And again, I don't need to go into all the science of that, not that I even know all the science of it, but apparently it has to do something with, exposure to light and da-da-da-da-da. But it's something that some folks struggle with. I don't know if I have the official, I don't have an official diagnosis of that disorder, nor do I really care to. But I do know that I'm not a fan of the winter months. I know that, and I know I do seem to struggle to keep my mood where I like it to be a little more in the winter months. And exercise is just critical in helping me to do that. It is like my number one tool that I use to keep my mood good when the weather is, in my opinion, bad. Apologies to those of you who love winter. I never have. So, it even helps with sleep. Exercise helps very much in regulating good, having good sleep and keeping good sleep rhythms, for want of another word, can help with insomnia. There are studies that show that it helps with aging, and I guess that makes a lot of sense because it's definitely good for your bones, and I know a lot of aging-related problems do have to do with your bones, osteoporosis and the like. Another benefit to exercise, and you notice I saved it for way down the list where I think it belongs, but there's still nothing wrong with mentioning it as a benefit, is the fact that you're going to look better. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better. We like beautiful things in our lives, right? We like beautiful art. We like, beautiful flowers and anything that's aesthetically pleasing. So I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting our bodies and our appearance to be as aesthetically pleasing as we can make it, as long as we don't get to, neurotic about it, I hope. But I don't think there's anything wrong with mentioning that as a benefit to exercise. So hopefully that's enough benefits to get you excited. If you weren't excited already, hopefully you're excited already. I mean, everybody, as we said, the topic, I'm sorry, I'm losing my word. The topic of the show, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the other word isn't going to come to me, is, having the best life that we can have, making our life better tomorrow, making our life happier tomorrow. Exercise it certainly does that for me. And hopefully it does for you too. And hopefully, if not, I've given you some things to think about above. And then as we talk about some of the ways that we can incorporate exercise, in hopefully, it should be fun. And I'll talk, that's in my notes as one of the things I want to talk about is it should be fun. And that's going to be the easiest way, obviously, to stay consistent with it is if it is fun. If it's a drag every single day, that's going to make it harder to do. So, how long should you exercise and how often? I'll start by saying what I'm trying to do these days, and then we'll talk about some, other parameters that we can look at. But I, right now, am trying to stick with the idea of an hour a day every day. So that's 7 hours a week. I think that's a good medium number. I do like the idea of exercising most days. I don't generally schedule in rest days. Not to say I don't take one if I need one, but I generally don't schedule them in. Now, some folks may say, "Oh, but I've heard that's an awful thing, and you can you can overtrain and you got to rest and da 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 da." Well, the thing that I've found is that does seem to be the case if you're not being as balanced in your workout routine as I've talked about above, hitting the 3 pillars and not just hammering at the same thing all the time. That's my opinion, and that's what I do, and that does seem to work. So yeah, I'm not doing the same thing every day. I'll go into my normal routine that I'm doing right now in a little bit, just to give you an idea of what mine is. Not that yours has to be that, but just to give you an idea of a real life example. But yeah, so I do try to exercise every day. To me, that makes it easier to maintain the habit as well. I've got a pretty much set time, a little bit different on the weekends sometimes, but pretty much a set time when I exercise. And so it's a habit. I don't have to make the decision every day to exercise or when I'm going to exercise, or do I feel like exercising today or not, or give myself a chance to talk myself out of it. 6 o'clock in the morning, it's time to exercise. That's my habit. And so that actually makes it easier for me, that I'm not having to tire my decision-making muscle, out every day making that decision. The decision's already made. 6 o'clock, time to work out. So I do 60 minutes a day. I think that's an hour, obviously. I think 2 hours is probably where I might want to put the idea as that's maybe as much as you want to do. I mean, I can't say that there aren't exceptions, but this is really just my opinion. I'm not really basing this on any studies or science that I've read. Just my gut feeling and opinion. I think 2 hours a day is plenty for most situations. Obviously, any exercise is better than none. Again, in my mind, I've always had 20 minutes as kind of the bare minimum. And again, you definitely, especially if you're doing that little, you'd want to be doing it every day. Hey, 20 minutes a day is better than nothing. I mean, I guess 5 minutes a day is better than nothing, but you're not going to get much benefit from that. I've always sort of set 20 as the minimum in my mind. Again, that's based on mostly opinion. Seems like I've read some stuff throughout the years that's agreed with that or supported that. So 60 minutes a day is my sort of in the middle place. 2 hours if you want to join the advanced class, and 20 minutes just the bare minimum if you can't figure out a way to do more. But the show is about challenging you, so I would challenge you to try to do more. I already said do your best to make it fun. That's going to make it easier to stick with. But the other point that I want to make, and I'm not sure exactly how I want to make this, but do it anyway. Do it even if it's not fun. It's that important. And maybe some days it's not going to be fun. I mean, I don't know why I say maybe. Some days it's definitely not going to be as much fun as others. There's some days when I'm going to the gym, but I'm kind of maybe dragging myself a little bit more. Most days, fortunately, it's not like that. I enjoy exercising, and it is a habit, and I'm used to it. But yeah, there's those days when you're dragging yourself, and do it even if it's not fun. Now, that's not to say if you're sick with the flu or something that you should drag yourself. No, of course not in that case. But don't let yourself off the hook too easy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Another trick, and this wasn't in my notes, but it just occurred to me. It's a trick I used mostly with running, but I've heard of folks doing it with the gym as well. And this might be especially helpful when you're first starting a habit where maybe it's not been a habit in the past, is to sort of just make a deal with yourself to start. In other words, with running, my thing always was, I'm going to go out, regardless of whether I had planned to run 5 miles or 10 miles or 15 miles, I'm committing to at least running a mile. This is especially on the days when I'm sort of dragging myself out there and I really don't know if I'm feeling it. I'm like, okay, all you have to do is go out for a mile. And after a mile, if you're still not feeling it, you can quit. It's like I'm giving myself permission. I can quit after that mile. Because the thing is, 99 times out of 100, once you get out there, you're going to feel great. And there have been 1 or 2 times when I, had told myself that in advance. And sure enough, after that mile, for whatever reason, I was just run down or whatever, and I wasn't feeling it. And I kept my promise to myself, and I said, okay, I told myself I could head to the house now, and I've done that once or twice. But 99 times out of 100, once you're out there, you feel great and you're good to go. As far as, helping you maintain that habit, making friends who are supporting you and who can be accountability partners, that can be very helpful. Any sort of a community thing, for weightlifting, you can get a community of your friends there in the gym. That's helpful. For running with a running group, or cycling with a cycling group, swimming with a swimming group, yoga with a yoga group or class. I mean, a lot of these activities lend themselves to group activities, and that can be very helpful for the social aspect, for the motivation aspect, motivating each other. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. And help keeping you accountable. If you know somebody's waiting for you at the gym, you're probably going to show up, aren't you? Whereas it might be easier to hit the snooze button if no one's there waiting for you. So yeah, make it a habit. I think I've already covered that in enough detail, and I guess I shouldn't talk with my coffee cup in front of my face. Joe, you got to learn how to do this show. Come on, man. Some obstacles or cautions or whatever words you want to use there. The one that I want to mention is, and this is going to surprise some folks, I'm sure, make sure you're eating enough. Make sure that you're eating enough to support the exercise that you're doing. You're burning calories when you exercise, different amounts for different activities. And while I understand that, for weight management and wanting to be in a calorie deficit, that can be beneficial, but you don't want to be in too much of a calorie deficit. That is counterproductive. And, this sort of ties in with Friday's episode where we talked about nutrition and counting calories, so knowing how many calories you're taking in, having an idea how many you're expending and adjusting, based on that. So make sure you're eating enough, especially, I suppose, with weightlifting. That definitely comes into play, because if you're trying to build muscle, you've got to take in enough calories to build that muscle. And so it can be, somewhat counterproductive if you're not eating enough, and your workouts aren't going to be as good either if you're not eating enough. And I mean, definitely the same goes with, most any exercise where you're exercise, you're not going to be, if you don't have enough gas in the tank, you're not going to be able to get the job done, to get the exercise job done. So that's a way to look at that. I don't want to talk too much about macronutrients, but because I think that gets a little overemphasized sometimes, the importance of that. But I suppose there is some importance to it. Definitely if you're trying to build muscle, protein is the macronutrient that is going to be stressed by the folks that you talk to that are going to be giving you advice about building muscle. For your carbohydrates, you have to remember that those are your energy source. So those, again, you need the energy fuel that you're going to need because you're going to burn that energy in exercise. So you want to make sure that gas is there. Your fats, as I understand it, those are more for your essential bodily processes. By the way, I'm obviously not a expert on nutritional science, so please forgive me if my explanations of this are at an elementary level. But that's my basic understanding of how the three macronutrients, their roles. When is the best time to exercise? The answer to that is whenever you will do it. Absolutely the best time. I know for me, and I gotta think this is probably for most people, the morning is the best time. A lot of reasons. First of all, you've got it done. You don't have to worry about it the rest of the day. It's a great way to start the day. I think it gives you a little energy boost to start the day. For me, that's the ideal time. Sooner the better. I mean, I heard a joke once, I want to get in there and start exercising before my brain has a chance to figure out what we're doing and stopping me, And so that's very beneficial for me. But if it doesn't work for your schedule for whatever reason, or even you don't like it, I'm sure there are some folks that prefer working out in the afternoon or prefer working out in the evening or after work or whatever. For me, the danger always was, but if I wait till after work and then I feel tired, I've had a more stressful day than normal, I'm always afraid that would stop me from doing it. Whereas first thing in the morning, I'm fresh as a daisy, I've got no excuse. But do whenever works for you. So we're coming up on the 24-minute mark. I'm gonna switch this up a little bit. I think I'm gonna talk about tools first because that will take less time. Because when I was thinking about exercise tools that I use or tools that I want to recommend, I wasn't so much coming up with physical tools. For one reason, I guess it depends on what activity you're doing. I mean, there are so many different, we talked about, well, strength training, so you're mostly weights and kettlebells, and you can use resistance bands, body weight. I mean, there's lots of different ways to go with that. Flexibility, I think mostly of yoga, and I'm sure there's other things that I'm not as knowledgeable about. Tai Chi, Qigong, I'm trying to think of some things I've heard about. Yoga is kind of the main thing for me there. And then for, cardio, it depends on what you're doing. Yeah, bike if you're riding a bike, swim stuff if you're swimming. Running, the nice thing is you don't really need, short and shoes, and that's all you need. Sometimes you don't even need shoes, as some of you know me. No, I run barefoot sometimes. So not as many tools. The one tool that I decided, though, that I did want to mention, although it's not exactly a physical tool, but for weightlifting, I definitely recommend joining a gym. And the reason that I say this is something that I did not do for a long time. I thought I preferred lifting weights at home, and I had a relatively nicely equipped home gym, and thought that was working better for me for that. I just thought that was a lower barrier. I didn't have one less excuse. The gym is so far, I don't have time. Well, it's right in the basement. I can just walk downstairs almost as soon as I get out of bed and work out. So I thought that was the best solution for me. After changing and actually joining a gym and starting to lift at the gym, I realized that was a far, for me at least, superior experience. And I realized that working out at home was actually holding me back, and that I was able to do a lot more at the gym. Like the obvious thing that occurs to me is, unless you have a really well-equipped home gym, I didn't have a squat rack. It is, so how much weight can you do on a squat without a squat rack? My answer was not as much. Once I actually got in the rack, I was able to greatly increase the weight that I was able to do, and I don't see how I would have been able to do that at home. Not that you can't get Olympic weights for at home, but my weights that I had weren't Olympic, and so I guess that would be another recommendation. I had whatever the smaller ones are called that are not Olympic, standard, I'm not even sure what they're called. But that's what I had. Those are just not as good, and they're not as stable. They're just harder to work with. And then I also had I didn't have and I'm sorry I don't know all the terminology here, but I didn't have the little quick release collar, so I was having to screw and unscrew the thingamabobs to hold my weight plates on. So that just took so much more time. And just to say, to sum up what I've already said, the gym just worked out so much better for me. So that's my tool recommendation: join the gym. For resources, I've got a lot, and it depends on what exercise you're interested in. I've really been focusing on the weightlifting lately, I think, because that was an area that I don't want to say I was neglecting it, but that I wasn't doing the right things. I already said working out at home, I think, was holding me back, and then there was some information that I hadn't yet come across that I've come across and sort of changed what I'm doing. Anyway, I'm really enjoying the weightlifting now. Oh, and I guess I better talk about this real quick before I forget, because this is not in my notes. I said I'd tell you what my routine is. My current routine is I do weights 3 times a week. That's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I was doing them 4 and 5 times a week for a while there, and who knows, I may even go back to that. But for now, I'm doing 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do cycling for an hour. Actually, there's a spin class at my gym that I enjoy, and so I do that. Saturdays, I've been swimming, and Sundays, I've been running. So I've got 4 days of cardio, 3 days of weights, and my cardio I split up amongst the 3 ways that I like to do cardio, which is swimming, biking, running. Since I do triathlons, not surprising. So that's my routine, and I said I'd mention that, so I wanted to say that because I knew it wasn't in my notes. So getting back to my resources, as I said, I've gotten real excited about the weightlifting lately, so a lot of my resources revolve around that. I think Mark Ripeto's book called Starting Strength, that's where I'm getting my main weightlifting information and routine right now. That book is great. It really goes into exhaustive detail on your form, which is so important with weightlifting, especially when you're getting up with the heavy weights. You want your form to be right. You don't want to hurt yourself. And this book goes into, again, I use the word exhaustive detail. I mean, I made a joke. I forget he has almost 100 pages on the squat. So, you know, that's exhaustive. So that's a good one. Mike Matthews has another good book, which is called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. And he did another version tailored to women that's called Thinner, Leaner, Stronger. I'll just put that, I mean, that's what he calls them. I'll leave that to you to interpret. But those are good books. Those have a lot of good information in them. Tony Horton, I'm sure, and, you know, he's the one I've dealt with more, but obviously he's the Beachbody P90X, and I know there's others, Insanity, and I'm blanking on the guy's name. I never did do that workout much. But, you know, those are some good resources for, you know, for good routines. A weird one, but one that I want to mention, is a book called Strength Training Anatomy. It's by a gentleman named Frederick Delavier, I guess you pronounce it. That one's just real good and real exhaustive. It's a weird book. I don't know how to explain that, except it's weird, but it's good. So that's a good one to check out. As far as cardio, or if you're more into running, I've read several running books. The one that I would recommend is called Run Less, Run Faster. It's a very simple approach to running and to improving your running. I'm not following it now because I'm not running as much. It's basically based on a 3-day-a-week program where you're doing a long run, a tempo run, and interval training. By the way, interval training, this is just an aside. Any kind of exercise that you're doing, any sort of high-intensity interval training is the fastest way to get results. You don't want to do it all the time because it's really hard on your body, but that's just my tip from me to you that I learned from experience. Nothing like interval training to get to goals fast. As far as yoga, I'm newer to that game, and you know, I'm not the expert on that. One point I want to make for the men out there is you don't have to go to a class to do yoga. I only say that because I think men are not as they're more resistant to going to classes for some reason than women are. I think I'm even that way. I'm not a big class person. That just doesn't usually appeal to me, although I do go to spin class. But don't think you have to go to a yoga class. Certainly nothing wrong with going, and you'll definitely get good instruction and benefit if you want to go. But there are other options. There's books out there. I even read Yoga for Dummies, which was really good. And the other resource I would mention is it's actually another YouTube channel. It's called Boho Beautiful. Those videos are very well done, and I actually follow some of those for my own yoga routine, the yin yoga in particular, on the recommendation of my beautiful wife Judy. She's the one that got me into that. Lots of other tools out there, Zwift and Strava. If you're into cycling, Strava is not only cycling, but I think of it more in that regard. Garmin Connect, especially if you've got a Garmin watch, although you can enter information manually into that as well. That's a good way. It'll let you track everything, your cardio, your strength training, and a lot of other stuff. Daily Mile, I think that one maybe has gone a little by the wayside, but that's another good site for running. So we're past 30 minutes, so I need to wrap this up. I always end the show with a daily challenge. Your daily challenge is to do what I do. Commit for the next week. I'm going to ask you to do it for 1 week, 60 minutes every day. I don't care what you do. Walk, play tennis, not air hockey, but anything. Lift weights, run, swim, bike, an hour a day. Try to make it at the same time every day. That's going to make it easier to get that habit established. Do it for a week. See if you can't get that habit going if you're not already. If you are already, then your daily challenge is to step it up. I always say that. I mean, I don't know what else, because I don't know where everyone's at. So I try to give a challenge, at least one challenge to you. Okay, I've got to stop talking. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Please share the show. Tell your friends who will benefit from it. Sign up for our email list at alwaysbetterchallenge.com. I'm trying to get a shorter website name. I mean, I've got it, but I'm troubleshooting it right now, which is abetterchallenge.com, just so you don't have to type as much or whatever. So that's coming, but that may not be up yet. So I don't even know I told you about it. That was dumb. If you have any questions that you'd like me to address on a future show, please send those my way. Suggestions, criticism, critique, feedback, positive, negative. We've got a Facebook group. join that. That's it. I got to stop talking. Thanks so much. Hope everyone is having a great Monday. And until next time, this is Joe Bedford reminding you to make it happen. Goodbye. Have a great day.